I slammed the truck door so hard that the side mirror rattled. I wasn't supposed to be home for another 2 days. But you know how life goes, sometimes things don't go as planned. My flight got canceled last minute because of a storm warning up in Oregon, so I ended up driving all night. By the time I pulled up to the long dirt road leading to my ranch, my land, I had no idea what I was walking into. The sight hit me like a ton of bricks. There were balloons, colorful balloons tied to the white fence. Cars were parked all over my grass, my property. And right there in the middle of my driveway, of all places, there was a fold-up table with a clipboard and a cash box. Folding chairs were lined up facing a raised platform made from old wooden crates. A man in a suit was holding a microphone, and standing beside him, grinning like she owned the world, was her. Karen. Karen Peterson, the HOA president, had been a thorn in my side ever since I moved to the outskirts of Amber Ridge 5 years ago. She had this bleach blonde hair piled high like she was heading to the Kentucky Derby, and her oversized sunglasses covered half her face. But I knew that smirk anywhere, and it made my blood boil. And then, to top it off, there was a sign. A big, bold black-lettered sign on my porch that read, "Live Property Auction. Today only." I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't even process it for a moment. The sound of my heart pounding was deafening, and I knew right then this wasn't a mistake. This was a full-blown crime in motion. I barely had time to step out of the truck, boots hitting the gravel, when Karen saw me. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a second, her smile faded. Her jaw dropped. She muttered something to the man with the microphone, and then she stormed down the porch steps toward me. "You're not supposed to be here," she hissed, like I was the one who was trespassing. I blinked in disbelief. "Excuse me? This is my ranch." She stepped back, dramatically placing her hand over her chest like I had just insulted her. "This is HOA property now," she said loudly, trying to draw attention from the small crowd that had gathered. "We tried to reach you. You abandoned the land. It's going to auction." I clenched my fists, heart racing. "I've been gone 5 days, Karen. 5. And my property is not under your HOA. But Karen didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled out her phone and dialed. 911. "What's your emergency?" she said, her voice trembling, fake fear seeping through her words. I could hear the operator on the other end, faintly. "Yes, there's a man here. He's threatening us at the auction. I don't feel safe." And then, she looked straight at me, locking eyes like she was daring me to say something. I couldn't believe it. She was calling the cops on me for standing on my own land. That's when I heard its sirens. They were faint at first, but they were getting closer. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just dealing with some misunderstanding. This was war. But let me take you back to how all of this started. My name's Daniel Carter. I'm 42 years old, and I live the quiet life, just me, my ranch, and the simple pleasure of fixing tractors, raising cattle, and sipping coffee on the porch at sunrise. I served 15 years in the Air Force before I retired early and used my SAVYNGS to buy a small 20-acre ranch just outside of Amber Ridge, Texas. It was my dream, away from the city, away from the rules, just wide open space. I never liked HOAs, so I made sure the land I bought was outside their jurisdiction. I did my research, hired a lawyer, double-checked zoning maps. This land wasn't under any HOA's control. It was my safe haven. But Karen had other plans. Karen Peterson had been the HOA president of Amber Ridge for over a decade. Her husband, Tom, barely ever around. Most of the time, Karen ran the neighborhood like a queen. She handed out violation notices like they were candy and treated every new homeowner like they were a threat. When I first moved in, she showed up at my door with a clipboard and a plate of cookies, acting all sweet and friendly. "These are the HOA rules," she said, handing me a sheet. "Just sign here to acknowledge." I smiled and shook my head. "Thanks, but my ranch isn't part of your HOA." Her smile froze. "I see. Well, that can change," she said, her tone shifting just slightly. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. At first, it was little things, small letters in the mail, notices on my gate demanding I paint my barn in a neutral HOA-approved color, and once, a pamphlet titled, "Why All Homeowners Should Join the HOA for Your Protection." I ignored her, stayed polite, waved when I passed her Range Rover. But she just kept escalating. One afternoon, I found her snooping around my chicken coop. I asked her what she was doing, and she had the nerve to say she was checking for zoning violations. I asked her to leave, and she muttered something about me being a threat to neighborhood standards before storming off. But I didn't think she'd go this far. I was wrong. The week before the auction incident, I had to make a trip to Oregon to help my sister who was recovering from surgery. I made sure everything was in order before I left, locked up the gates, asked my ranch hand, Mark, to check in every other day. Everything seemed fine until I returned early, and that's when I saw the auction happening on my porch. I was gone for only 5 days, and somehow, that was enough time for Karen to pounce. There was no call, no email, no legal notice, just an auction. Back on the scene, I tried to explain to the auctioneer that this was a mistake. This land is mine, I said, pulling out my ID. My name's on the deed. This woman has no legal right to be here. The auctioneer, a nervous guy with slick back hair, raised his hands. I was hired to sell a foreclosed property. I was given the paperwork. Let me see it, I said slowly, stepping forward. I'm not part of your HOA. Before he could reply, the police arrived. 2 cruisers rolled in with the flashing blue and red lights cutting through the afternoon sun. Karen greeted the officers like they were her personal security, pointing at me. Thank goodness you're here, she said dramatically. This man is trespassing. One of the officers came toward me. Sir, we need you to step aside. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You've got to be kidding me, I said, stepping forward. You're here to arrest me on my own property? The officer looked closely at my ID. Wait, your name's Daniel Carter? Yes, I replied. Karen told us the owner had abandoned the ranch, the officer said, looking at her. She lied? I snapped. I've been gone less than a week. I haven't abandoned anything. But Karen wasn't done. Officer, he's making threats, she said. He shouted at me and tried to shut down a legal HOA auction. Before I could respond, Mark came running down the path, waving a manila envelope. I found this by the back office. The whole crowd turned to look as he handed it to me. I opened it, and what I saw made my blood run cold. It was a forged power of attorney document with my signature forged. I held it up. You still think I'm the criminal here? I asked, voice rising. The officers took the document, read it, then glanced at Karen. Ma'am, where did you get this? Her face went pale. I don't know what this is. Before she could respond, Sheriff Doyle's cruiser rolled in. He got out slowly, taking in the scene, sizing it all up. What in God's name is going on here? He asked. I pointed straight at Karen. She called 911 on me for standing on my own land. She tried to auction off my ranch, and now we've found forged documents. Doyle didn't even flinch. Karen, I know every square inch of this county. This ranch isn't part of your HOA, and you know it. Karen tried to explain herself, but Doyle wasn't having it. You didn't go through the courthouse. You went through a microphone. By now, Karen was unraveling, shouting, This is a mistake. He's lying. You're all taking his side because he's a man. The crowd started to murmur, some backing away, others watching the drama unfold. But it was over. Doyle turned to his deputies. Get everyone off this property. The auction's over. Keep her here. We need to have a conversation downtown. But just as we thought it was over, a loud crash came from the back of the house. We rushed to the barn, and what we saw made my jaw drop. The storage shed, was in flames. Final resolution. After hours of chaos, we managed to get the fire under control, but the damage was done. The barn was reduced to a charred skeleton. That was when I knew Karen was pulling strings with more people than I realized. The fire was no accident. With Karen in cuffs and the case escalating, Sheriff Doyle and I started to piece things together. We found out that she'd been working with an insider, Kyle, a temp I'd hired to organize my files. Turns out, he'd been feeding her information and helping her forge documents. Angela, my lawyer, filed suits against the HOA, and soon after, people started to back down. Karen's reign was over. Tom was caught trying to shred HOA documents, and members began to resign. But the real Tory came when I received the news. The easement road that led to my ranch was officially recognized as private property, with no claim from the HOA. The truth had won out. The ranch was safe. And in the end, it wasn't just about land or property. It was about standing up for what's right, even when the odds were stacked against you. Final thoughts call to action. So, the next time you're driving through Amber Ridge and you see a ranch with a white fence and a sign that reads, "We don't sell, we don't run," you'll know exactly who it belongs to. Remember, this never underestimate the power of one man standing his ground. If you've ever faced a similar battle with an HOA or any group that tried to push you around, drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. What's your story? What's the hardest fight you've ever had to stand up for? Let me know. And if you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next.